My sister ruined our honeymoon by turning our cruise into a nightmare of bullying and daycare, and now my family is being destroyed by the fallout. I am 37 years old. My mother is a retired caregiver with over 25 years of experience. My sister has worked in the field for 2 years, and I have worked in the field for 11 years. Cassie must be with my mom, sister, or me at all times as she is not independent. This is the third cruise trip for my mom, sister, and Cassie, and the first cruise trip for everyone else. First cruise trip. My husband and I got married this year. 2024 will be our 11th wedding anniversary. My mother has wanted to take a big family cruise with her immediate family for many years, in the year she retires. This year she retired. She told my husband and me that she would pay for part of our expenses and the balcony suite as a honeymoon gift. She told us that although this is a family cruise, we should treat it like a honeymoon, relax and enjoy, don't be stressed, and set aside a lot of private time. We were all worried because it was a significant expense and it seemed difficult to mix a honeymoon with a family cruise. We didn't know how to arrange everything, but my mother told us not to worry, and we convinced her to allow us to pay for any additional expenses, such as drinks purchased on and off the cruise ship, and she agreed. We both expressed our deep gratitude to her and showed our appreciation throughout the trip. Unfortunately, our honeymoon cruise ended in an emotional disaster, despite my husband and I having some happy times and doing our best to overcome the immense stress. My sister had a lot of bullying and temper tantrum behavior, mostly directed at me and sometimes at other people. Although my sister has always been strong and stubborn, she was also one of the biggest supporters of my husband and I in most situations, and we value this very much. My husband lost his entire family simply because he is gay, so any love and support is very precious to us. Don't get me wrong, we love my sister, but she didn't treat us well before the cruise trip. When my siblings, husband, and Tim met, the topic of the cruise came up, and we all agreed that it would be the best way to thank my mom for letting her enjoy the cruise trip without having to take care of Cassie for a day. Mom also paid for most of my sister and Tim's expenses as well as all of my brother's expenses, which was her choice. We discussed having Amber and Tim, or my husband, and I care for Cassie during the first half of the day and then switch, as it made sense to have my sister and I not together since we both work in the nursing field. This was just a discussion and not a set plan. However, on the cruise, we soon discovered that my brother and Tim could take care of Cassie without us, and the days of caring for Cassie became 4 days, lasting 3 to 5 hours each time. Caring for Cassie became 4 days a day, lasting 3 to 5 hours each time, and it was part of our rest time. We never agreed on this, never discussed it, and never mentioned it to me or my husband. Cassie was handed over to me for care 3 times, all of a sudden. Although I accepted all 3 times, I didn't want to cause a dispute. Of course, I wanted my mom to relax. This happened 3 times, and my sister and mom would go to the spa and spend time together. The 4th time, my husband and I took care of Cassie so my mom could enjoy 4 hours alone because she needed a break. This time, we offered because she seemed stressed, so she enjoyed the time alone. I love Cassie. She has family and also a job. She needs help with many things. My husband does what he can to help, but I am the primary caregiver. I was happy that Cassie was happy, but all 3 tasks were handed to me by Amber, not my mom. Every time my husband and I had to cancel plans together, there were a lot of one-time activities and couple activities on the cruise that we wanted to experience. We had no choice. It was our turn to take her, and we did. No matter what I did, there was always something wrong. No matter how hard I tried to follow Amber's instructions, I always missed something. She always reminds me how lucky I am that my mother spends so much money on my husband. We should be grateful every time we go out for a special drink. Every time we discuss buying a photo or a piece of merchandise, she reminds us that it costs extra. She reminds us not to abuse our mother. One day, she will encourage us to discuss buying something with our mother. The next day, she will say I am selfish and not thinking of my mother, and I am just repeating what my mother said to me the day before. In crowded restaurants, she will slow down her speech many times during dinner, talk to me like a child, or try to teach me how to do things properly so I don't mess up next time. Once, she even handed our staff the signed photo album for Cassie to sign. I was so overwhelmed, so anxious, my mind went blank. Amber yelled at me, directing me to do things she could have easily done herself. Then, she continued berating me in front of 40 people, and I felt so humiliated. She said she couldn't understand why I couldn't follow the simplest instructions. I've never been so humiliated in my life. She treated me so badly. I felt bad all night. I couldn't figure out what I'd done wrong. I wanted to have fun, but it felt like I was in a nightmare. My husband was angry. I asked my mom if she knew what was going on, and she said she did, but she wouldn't tell us. I went to talk to Amber, and my mom begged me not to because Amber would just tell me what happened herself. She is becoming more and more unbearable, meaner and meaner, and even accused me publicly of forcing my mother to do the laundry when I had only asked how the washing machine worked after the 7-day tour. My husband and I only had 8 hours alone to enjoy our honeymoon. The rest of the time was either spent with someone or with family, mostly caring for Cassie or Amber, or on group trips, most of which were fun, or cruising with family, whom I love. But I will never travel with my sister again. I have never treated her like she treated me. After the cruise, I truly felt she hated me. I wrote her a letter explaining how hurt I was, how I felt like her own golf ball and punching bag, and how I felt so disrespected and used. She wrote me back with a novel explaining her financial situation, my mother's financial situation, and listing the reasons why she behaved the way she did, trying to justify her actions. Then she wrote an apology letter, which at least my mother read and said was a good apology, and let's just let it go and move on. Here's a copy-paste of her apology letter. I don't want to pretend to be a saint. I should have realized that I was getting frustrated and asked why you were making things so difficult, but instead I felt that you were picking on me for no reason, and that built up my frustration until I lost my cool. I know how I get when that happens, and it's not good, and I sincerely apologize again for that. I love my sister, and I love my family, but their reactions were horrible. My mother almost took my sister's side, and my husband remained silent towards me. They used to chat every day, saying that I had hurt Amber by calling her out. If I really wanted to hurt Amber, I succeeded, even though she told me she agreed that Amber was in the wrong. I should have let it go. She didn't want to die, knew that I had destroyed the family, and my brother didn't want anything to do with it and gave up communicating, except for one conversation also taking her side, saying that her silence was better than my notoriety. Saying he didn't want to fail his health and let him die, knowing the family is in a state of chaos, her partner Tim is silent, Amber is completely silent, after I issued a final warning, unless I can prove to her that I am not a selfish and ungrateful person, she will end our relationship. The result she hopes for is to get me back into the family. The realistic result is that I may be able to get them to agree to family counseling to repair what little relationship is left between us, but honestly, it looks very grim. I don't want to sound melodramatic, but my heart hurts like hell every day. I want to give my husband a real family, one that will love him. I wholeheartedly believe that this would be my family, but they have all proven that it will not happen. Giving up on it, forgiving her abuse, will only make me resent my family. I don't want to lose them, but feeling abused by them, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. Is it worth asking my sister for a formal apology, or is it worth doing it now? I'm really open to any advice, because my husband and I are completely at a loss. Cassie is actually not related to my family, but about 11 years ago, when I was still living with my parents, she was sent to my mother's house to take care of her. At that time, she had seizures every day, and the reason we were able to take her in was because both Cassie and I were social workers. I would take care of her when she had a seizure, and my mother would take care of her during the day. Since Amber turned 18, she no longer lives with us, so she doesn't have to care for Cassie like my mother and I do. She just comes over occasionally to spend time with the family and then goes home. She has never cared for Cassie on a long-term basis, just occasionally. If she visits my mother, she helps take care of Cassie while my mother goes about her business or distracts Cassie if my mother feels overwhelmed. Not just Amber. Everyone helps out because Mom is getting older and tired and has made it clear that she doesn't know how much longer she can look after Cassie. Amber thinks Cassie can't do anything wrong, but the truth is that Cassie can be very self-centered and doesn't realize the effect her behavior has on the people around her. She can be difficult to approach because if you tell her how you feel, she completely understands, so you have to be gentle with her, but you must never show any frustration in front of Amber. As for the future, when my mother dies or can no longer care for Cassie, the plan is for Cassie to go back to the Welfare Institute and be placed with another family. Amber likes to think that she can care for Cassie, but she is completely wrong. Cassie needs a lot of care. Amber's partner is already ill and doesn't have the energy, and Cassie needs constant care. Her seizures have mostly stopped, but she still tends to fall over and hurt herself. My husband and I have discussed this, and we both agree that we should not take care of Cassie. I could certainly become a full-time home caregiver, but it would require a huge effort. My husband is not a caregiver, and while he loves Cassie, it would be too much to ask him to share the responsibility. As for my brother, he could never take care of Cassie, and if Cassie had to go back into the system, things would get very difficult because we are not considered immediate family. Even though she lived with my mom for over 10 years, we couldn't visit her. Maybe my mom could still visit her since she lived with Cassie, but the possibility of our being able to continue to be involved in her life is very slim. Whenever my mom and I brought it up, especially with Amber, it always ended in nothing, and we tended to avoid it. After the cruise ended, I wrote Amber a letter explaining everything, including the time, frequency, and duration of my time with Cassie and how I felt. Unfortunately, the response I got was a long letter in which she excused her behavior, citing her financial situation, and her confusion at my inability to understand the simplest of instructions. She repeatedly said she didn't know that the cruise was our honeymoon, then admitted she knew, that she must have known, that she and my husband had discussed the honeymoon plans on the phone many times, but once we were on the cruise, it was like it was forgotten. As for showing this article to anyone, honestly, I think it would help my mom, who provided me with Amber's information and told me what I wrote to her. It's so twisted. I forwarded the email to my mom so she could see for herself. My mom said Amber apologized and I should accept it, but the so-called apology was not a real apology. I don't understand why my mom insists that this is the end of it. We are all using the WhatsApp app to keep track of who is Cassie and for how long. When it's my turn to be alone with Cassie, it's usually my mom who takes care of her. I spent most of the cruise with my mom and Cassie, which was fine in a way because we were treated well, but only Amber seems to have a problem. Everyone else just wants to relax and enjoy the trip. Your mother sounds like she's trying to avoid conflict, but it's really disappointing that she's not standing up for the truth. Mom paid X, you paid Y and Z Amber shouldn't have any excuse to be upset about money. Does your mother cave into Amber when she gets like this? That could explain a lot. I hope that you and your husband have many happy years together, no matter what happens. I hadn't thought about it that way, but after reading your comments, I realized something. While on the cruise, I didn't think there was a problem. My family knew that the room was part of our honeymoon gift, a 2-room connecting suite, with my husband and I on one side and my mom and Cassie on the other, sharing a balcony. After reading your comments, I went back through Amber's letter and found the following. I changed the names to the ones I use here. If I had known you would be so offended by helping Mom with Cassie's emergencies, or that you would consider an hour a day to give Mom a break to be abuse, or if I had known you were just thinking of the trip as a honeymoon instead of the family vacation that Mom planned and paid for, I would have insisted that Mom put Tim and I in connecting rooms and you somewhere else on the ship, so you could pretend we all didn't exist until you wanted to do something fun with us. I won't buy myself that expensive spa pass. I'll pay for it because I think it will help Mom, and I'll make sure my brother drags Mom there alone and keeps her there for at least an hour while I hang out with Cassie. The background here is that Mom was gone for long periods of time several times during the cruise, and Cassie was without her 3 times. Amber took her to the spa for 3 to 5 hours at a time. On one occasion, Cassie was alone with Mom for about 4 hours. Not every day, as Amber would have liked, but I think it was quite a lot of time, especially considering that my husband and I were on our honeymoon and Amber knew that before the cruise. My husband and I never saw the trip as a separate honeymoon. We were happy to be with our family. The only person who bothered us was Amber, who was constantly picking on us. By the end of the cruise, we started avoiding her because she became unbearable. Everyone else was fine, but in an emergency, Amber's questions seemed trivial to me, but important to her, as she has years of nursing experience. Cassie has OCD as part of her condition. She focuses on certain things and has to get things just right. As she is semi-dumb and has trouble expressing her needs, the more anxious she gets, the more difficult it is to communicate. Some of the emergencies were, she wanted regular size toothpaste, not the travel size. She wanted to buy a new watch to collect, but ended up breaking it and wanted it fixed. This took about a day and Cassie was very stressed. Once the watch was fixed, she wanted to buy a red watch she had seen. But Cassie couldn't buy it as it was out of budget. Amber wants to buy Cassie gifts to make her like me and thinks she will then be more willing to care for me. We call this behavior bribery, and this approach can lead to negative behavior, so I refuse to do it. I don't agree with this approach. Cassie also relies heavily on my mom. They are close in age, but Cassie calls her mom, and my mom allows it because Cassie is very young at heart and becomes increasingly uncomfortable if you don't spend a lot of time with her. She has trouble feeling comfortable with people other than my mom. Maybe Amber is having some personal problems right now. I considered the possibility that she was dealing with relationship issues or health problems, but when I asked my mom, she denied it. I rarely saw Amber and Tim on the cruise, although I did run into Tim, who was usually exploring the ship alone. Amber, on the other hand, always seemed stressed, anxious, or panicked. Tim, on the other hand, seemed calm and happy, but he was also constantly looking for excuses to leave my side. The thing is, we never wanted Amber to take care of Cassie. She offered to help. We all want our mom to get some rest, but Amber's intensity and her idea that everyone should pitch in overwhelms me, and it's mostly directed at me. After I wrote my sister Amber a letter explaining how she hurt me on our honeymoon, I never saw Tim or my brother help with the updates twice. My mom is convincing my husband and me to let a family friend do our taxes. We've gone to the same company for years, but she's very persuasive and says her friend has 15 years of accounting experience. Her friend also said that we accepted because she asked us to trust her, and that trust had cost us dearly. It happened in August 2024. Next, we learned that this family friend had messed up our taxes so badly that we now owed the government a large sum of money, in double digits. We discovered this by accident in December 2024, and our world immediately turned upside down. But I suppose in a way, despite our dire financial situation, it also made me see a lot of things clearly. My mother refused to help us in any way, not even offering to help us find resources or solutions. She told me that it was our fault for not paying taxes in the first place. It's hard not to blame her, because she made us trust her, and my husband and I are adults who made the choice to trust her. We still have that choice, but it's still awful, and although no one wished me happy birthday on my birthday or Merry Christmas, it's something that will never be forgotten. But this year, because of this incident, we missed it. Apart from that, my husband and I decided to cut off contact with all family members, including Amber's partner, mother, and brother. We thought this was the best option. We don't know how long it will last, but we know that it is the best choice for our health. Suddenly, a poster appeared on our social media account with comments that exposed our financial situation. The comments were very accurate, and we knew who posted them because only my husband and I, my mother and her friend who helped us file our taxes knew. I sent my mother a screenshot and asked her if she knew anything about it. She denied any involvement. We blocked those accounts, and less than an hour later, Tim contacted me via Facebook. I forgot to block him, and he said that no one knew he was sending me this message, that he was testing me, and that he and his family didn't know how to react to my husband and my actions. We immediately checked the blocked accounts and found that the account that posted the private financial information was Tim's. I contacted my mother again, but this time over the phone, and asked her to tell me the truth about the post. She started crying and said she had told Amber all of our financial information because she just wanted someone to talk to. I told her that by doing this she had lost the trust of both my husband and I. She had blatantly lied to me when I first asked her not to tell anyone. She told my sister, who knew we were going through problems. And we found out that my mom had also told her best friend and Amber all of my mom's and my husband's private medical information. Shortly after that, Amber created another account and started slandering us online. This information appeared on all the media sites we use. She did the same thing. It was shocking, because my mother has never revealed financial or medical information about my siblings to me. When I used to ask her in the past, she always said it was none of her business, and if I was curious, I would have to ask them myself. Why didn't I and my husband get the same respect? We have been dealing with this for more than 2 weeks, reporting and blocking accounts. It's horrible. I sent screenshots to my mother again to show her that the information she provided is now being used to publicly attack us. It turned out to be Amber and Tim, but she took their side. As time went on, my mother and brother were defamed. We learned that my mother, Tim, and my brother had been talking about my husband and me, especially before the wedding, and that my mother and Tim used negative words when talking about me. We also learned from my sister about their true feelings towards my husband. They hate him, and it broke our hearts. Too gay, drug addict, 9 years of abstinence, lazy, dirty, etc. The family spoke their minds about me, unstable, brainwashed, stupid, while my husband is a terrible manipulator, manipulating behind my back. My mother then started sending pictures of Cassie to my phone because I blocked her on other social media. I asked her to stop because it was a form of guilt and avoidance for her actions. She was so angry with me that she tried to make me feel guilty, so I blocked her phone number, which was our last contact. Now I have blocked all my immediate family and I feel sick. We only got married last July and I feel like my inner family is falling apart almost every day. I'm doing my best to get over it, but it's seriously affecting my sleep and appetite. I've accepted help with my mental health and it's been working well, which is a big reason I've blocked them. I'm writing this update because I was advised to post it online. I honestly don't know what to do, if it's possible to let them back into my life again. Both sides have said hurtful things. My husband has been very attacked and to be honest, he has had a nervous breakdown. I don't blame him. I can't ask him to allow them back into his life. They have been awful to him and it means making things right seems impossible. We do have a great support group of family and friends, and although we are not blood related, we are all very lucky and grateful, and it does make us feel a little better, because we have people to lean on. All the family advice and words have been an eye-opener, and my husband and I thank you for exposing the wrongs. You were right. I'm just sad because it's all true. I will keep you informed if anything else happens, but hopefully it won't. My mom's friend messed up and when we asked, she confirmed and said to enjoy our money, so we went ahead and paid all the bills and got married in December. We found out we owed money and went into debt consolidation to help us pay off the debt as we were on the path to bankruptcy. I don't want to go into too much detail as it may have legal implications, but we do have a lot of documentation to prove that our mom's friend believed she knew what she was doing. We don't think she did it on purpose, but made a mistake. She is retired now and doesn't work for the company. We are still dealing with the financial problems, so for now we have to stabilize the situation before we can think about the next step. If it is still possible, our repayment plan will take about 5 to 6 years, because we spent a lot of money. We understand that it is our money and everyone spent money. Even though we got financial help, CRA didn't immediately realize their mistake, but when we found out, we only received an email. But the interest was calculated from when Canada made the mistake. CRA, Canada Revenue Agency, was very rude. We were late filing taxes because we got married in July and the wedding was so busy that we completely forgot that taxes in Canada are usually paid in March or April, but we missed the deadline. In early August, we went on a week-long trip and when we got back, my mom convinced us to file taxes for free through a friend. She was worried that we would be charged extra by the company we usually used, especially since we had been so long in getting around to it, and her friend promised to take care of everything quickly and efficiently. We didn't question the speed with which she got everything done because neither of us is very good at paperwork and we always pay someone else to do it for us. We were told that we would receive a substantial sum of money, and we were convinced that everything was handled well, so we spent the money without thinking much about it. However, it turned out that the money was actually not ours, and we made a mistake and now have to pay it all back, including interest. We could owe up to $200 to $300 due to late fees, but after an expensive wedding and cruise, we thought free help was better than nothing, and since we were both broke at the time, it seemed like the right decision. I never mentioned the credit card, just explained how the mistake had destroyed years of hard work to achieve a high credit score of 700 plus, and now our credit had been hit hard for spending money that didn't belong to us, which was distressing. Especially as we had been careful to avoid bankruptcy, but the mess was still causing us a lot of trouble. We are not sure why CRA did not catch this error, as they are usually very good at spotting these. I think it may have been an oversight on their part, and it was not discovered until around December, even though the taxes and funds were processed in August. I would say more details, but we were told not to explain the whole process. The numbers will make it clearer, but I hope this gives you a better idea of what happened. Update 3. Okay, buckle up because this update is going to be like a roller coaster. To be honest, knowing that things were going to get this crazy, I thought a financial disaster was the worst that could happen, and I learned that the universe would test my patience in ways I could never have imagined. After the tax mess, my world already felt like it was falling apart, and we thought, okay, we just need time and space. We've been doing our best to focus on healing and trying to find a way out of this crazy abyss. Fell into this crazy hole, but then something truly shocking happened. We got a call from a strange lawyer who said they had confidential documents about the actions of my family. To say I was confused is an understatement. How could anyone have any knowledge about me, my husband, and my family? But of course I was curious. To my shock, the lawyer said that an investigation was underway into the financial mess. Long story short, it turned out that Amber, I presume, and possibly my mother, reported us to the CRA, accusing us of tax fraud. Yes, you heard right. They told the government that we knowingly filed false tax returns and tried to avoid paying the CRA. Of course, it didn't take long to find out, and the lawyer got involved. At first, I didn't even know what to say. I mean, they already knew our finances had deteriorated, and it was all my mother's friends' fault for making a mistake. But being accused of fraud was a whole new level of betrayal and pain. The lawyer understood the misunderstanding and explained that there was no evidence of intentional fraud in our family's trail, but we still had to go through the whole process to clear our names. Imagine living with that kind of emotional turmoil and feeling like you've lost control of your life. What made it worse was that the lawyer I was working with on the paperwork was super helpful. At first, I started receiving strange messages that seemed like a joke, full of malice, negative comments about my reputation and family values, but these messages came from multiple accounts, but they were all traced back to Amber and her friends. They created dozens of fake accounts to harass and slander me online. It was really disgusting. To be honest, it made me collapse. The family I trusted and loved turned into this nightmare. Then the craziest thing happened. I got a call from Amber. Yes, the person who had been spreading rumors for months, the person who had been involved in destroying my privacy, now called me. She cried and begged me to listen to her. She didn't know why things had gotten out of control. She was so sorry, and even admitted that she had contacted a lawyer. She said that the whole thing had just made her feel in control and put pressure on my mother, but the truth was that she had a personal grudge against my husband, and she thought what she had done was justified. I just couldn't believe it. In the midst of the utter absurdity, I suddenly came to my senses and realized that Amber had completely lost touch with reality and that she believed she was doing the right thing. I couldn't even be angry anymore, just sad and deeply disappointed. But my husband had given up all hope of reconciliation and didn't even want to speak to her. We finally decided to make her stop, and we made it very clear that she was not welcome in our lives until there was a significant change, acceptance of responsibility, and more healing. Since then, we have maintained radio silence and have had absolutely no contact. But then came the turning point. After all the chaos, we were unexpectedly blessed. A group of friends we had met on our honeymoon reached out to us. They saw our predicament and offered to help. They connected us with incredible resources and even provided us with financial advice. I mean, real professional advice on how to restore our credit, negotiate with the CRA, and get back on track financially. I was blown away by their kindness and willingness to help, and despite having nothing, we just saw hope for the first time in months. I felt like we weren't completely alone, but honestly, this whole journey has been devastating. The only thing I'm sure of is that my family, my real family, is the support system we built with our friends, the one we chose. It's not perfect, but we'll work on rebuilding it, and we'll be okay. I can't promise when me and my mom and Amber will be okay, but I'm starting to realize that sometimes in life you have to let go of the things that hurt you, even if you don't understand why it happened. Life goes on.